This month, the new 1 Free with 3 stamp set is one that you'll use again and again. Today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you a cute little 4 1/4 inch square card that's perfect for giving a gift card or tucking inside a birthday gift. Let me show you the tools and products you need to do this project. First, you're going to need some ink, and I am using the Gina Designs Ocean Mist ink and also the Memento Tuxedo Black. I'm also going to use a sponge dauber to apply some of this ink. Then you're going to need some cardstock, and the colors I've chosen are the Ocean Mist cardstock, the Red Hot cardstock, and some of our white. You're also going to need some ribbon, and I'm using some of the Red Hot gingham ribbon from our Color Companions collection. Then you're going to need a few markers, and I decided to use some Bic markers because a lot of you like when I use the Bic markers instead of the Copics, because some of the Copics are a little pricey, and for those of you who already have Copic markers, you can easily substitute your Copics for the Bics. The ones that I'm going to use today are the Tranquil Teal, the Rambunctious Red, and the Ocean View Blue. And I've managed to come up with a pretty good combination between the Ocean View Blue and the Tranquil Teal that matches our Turquoise Sea cardstock and also coordinates really nicely with the Ocean Mist. So you'll see that in just a bit. Then I have 2 dies here from Spellbinders, and you can also use your electronic cutter if you have the Silhouette or the Cricut or one of the other electronic cutters. You can use a circle and a scalloped circle or another fancy embellished type circle for the layer. But I'm using 2 Spellbinders dies. I'm using one of the standard circles and then also one of the lacy circles. I'm also using some 1/4 inch pop dots for this project, and I'm using a Cuttlebug folder, and this one is the Spots and Dots folder. Then I have 2 of the stamps from the new Sweet Tweet stamp set. I'm using the Big Cupcake image and the Happy Birthday image, or greeting. So to begin, I'm going to start with my focal image, and I'm going to stamp that using some of this Memento Tuxedo Black ink and a piece of the Gina Designs white layering weight cardstock. And I'm going to ink that up with the black ink because I'm using alcohol markers. The Bic markers and Copic markers are all alcohol markers, and when you use alcohol markers, you do need an ink that will dry very quickly and will not smear with those markers, and the Memento is definitely one of the best inks for that. Then I'm going to stamp my greeting right underneath, so I guess I didn't need to close up that pad so quickly. I'm going to put that right down here on the bottom. Happy birthday right under the cupcake. And then I'm going to color this image before I cut it out. But before I color it, I always like to check to make sure that it's going to fit inside my circle. Because if I go through all the trouble of coloring it and then I find out that my circle is going to get cut off, then I'll be very disappointed. So I want to check that first to make sure I didn't stamp it too low or too high on the paper. And that is just perfect. So now I can begin coloring. So to start, I'm going to color this little squiggly line with some of this Tranquil Teal. And this Tranquil Teal looks very much like our Ocean Mist. And I love this little point on the ultra-fine tipped markers. So I'm just going to do the little dots here. And then I'm going to do the candle as well. Now what I found was when I add a little bit of this Ocean View Blue on top, the color turns a little bit more like our Turquoise Sea. So it gets just a little bit darker, and it makes a nice complementary color to our Ocean Mist. So even though these are not expensive alcohol markers, They are alcohol markers, so they can be blended together to create new colors. So if you have nothing to do one evening, you should sit and try blending different combinations of colors and see how many new colors you can create. You'll be surprised what a dozen or so markers will produce. So now I'm going to use the rambunctious red to color in the hearts, and I have a few hearts up here. I just love this fun little image. It's just a little whimsical image. I'm going to color the flame in red too. And that's the beauty of crafting and art, is that you can take liberties and you can make the flame of your candle red if it matches your project better. Okay, so there is a little bit of coloring. Now I'm going to grab my Ocean Mist ink and just ink up this sponge dauber, and I am going to just brush a little bit off to make sure that it's not too much of a dot when I start working. And I'm just going to add a little bit of color into the top of the cupcake here, and I want that to be real breezy looking. I don't want it to be all inside the lines. And that just gave me a little kind of blush of color, for lack of a better term. Kind of goes outside the lines and it looks very misty. So okay, so now my next step is going to be to cut this out. And I'm going to grab my Cuttlebug for that. And I'm going to start with my A and my B plate. And put my image on there. And then I'm going to use that large circle. And make sure that that's evenly spaced. There we go. I think I'll move it up just a little bit. There we go. And my C plate on top. There we go. There is my image. Now I'm going to cut the layer out using some red cardstock. This is the Red Hot, and I'm going to use that lacy circle, A and B plate, and C plate on top. And that should be a nice clean cut as well. There we go. And so those two images layer very nicely together, and we'll make a sweet focal image for my little square card. Now before I'm done with the Cuttlebug, I want to take this piece of white cardstock, and I'm using the heavier cardstock for this part. This is our 120-pound cardstock. And I'm going to pop this inside the spots and dots folder. And the reason why I'm using the heavier cardstock is I just want a real crisp, deeply embossed background. So I'll pop that on, and then I won't be using the C plate this time on top. I'll be using the B plate because I'm doing some embossing. And there, you can see how nice and deep those spots and dots are. And now I'm going to assemble the card. For this little square card, I'm starting with an Ocean Mist card base that's cut to 4 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to layer my white piece onto this Red Hot piece of cardstock. Like that. Pull that up and straighten that out a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now, you can leave it just like that and pop your focal image on, or you can embellish it with a little bit of ribbon. I'm going to cut a little piece of ribbon and then make sure that it's centered. And sometimes when you're working with the cardstock and it's facing you like this, it's easy for it to be a little bit higher, a little bit low. So if you really want to make sure it looks centered, just turn it sideways and you'll see that it needs to go down just a little bit. It's not such a big deal in a rectangle card, but if you really want it in the center of a square card, you're going to be able to notice it a little bit more if it's off center, especially if you have a focal image going almost right in the center of the card too. So there we go. That should be pretty centered there. And now I'm going to adhere my focal image onto that layer, that lacy layer. And if you happen to use the lacy circles, make sure that the point of the flame is right in between two little scallops, and then your side scallops will fall right over the ribbon perfectly. So there we go. Pop that into place. And then you'll be able to tell also if your card is centered, if your ribbon is centered. And that looks pretty centered because you can see it's going right underneath those two scallops on either side. So let's put this panel onto the card base first. And whenever I have ribbon, I always like to put a little bit of adhesive right over the ribbon to make sure it doesn't loosen up at all. Put that right in the center. There we go. And now I'm going to add my focal image with a couple of these 1/4 inch pop dots. I'll put 2 on the top area and 2 on the bottom. That one stuck to me. And then we'll see if we can line this right up along that ribbon. There we go. And there is my finished little square card project. The sweet images in the new Sweet Tweet stamp set are perfect for making groups of birthday cards to tuck into clear boxes with envelopes and give as gifts to friends and family. And the images are the perfect size for stamping on 3x4 cards to create accents and journaling cards for your Project Life birthday pages.